Hallie's screaming like he's dying outside the door. Hi, welcome back to Abigail's Bookshelf. Today, I want to talk about 4 literary quotes that are often quoted out of context. All of these quotes come from much larger and longer quotes, and the pieces of them that are taken out of context mean something completely different when you actually put them back in the context of the paragraph they were in. So I want to talk about some of those today. If you have any of these quotes like in your room, because these, like I said, these are all very merchandisable quotes. They're the quotes that you see on posters, tote bags, key fobs, t-shirts. Like, it's a clip, right? It's a clip of a much bigger story. It's a clip of a whole book. And if you aren't familiar with the book, you will misinterpret its meaning because you're taking it out of its context. And if you have anything with any of these things on it, I'm not like being judgmental. I'm not saying that you're dumb. I'm just informing you of the context of these quotes, okay? That's all. This is a judgment-free zone. The first one, very famous, perhaps you can already guess it. It's from The Fellowship of the Ring, the first Lord of the Rings book by J.R.R. Tolkien. Not all who wander are lost. I often see this quote on like tote bags and keychains. I've seen stickers on the back of people's car, which, hey, that's kind of a concerning bumper sticker. Anyway, not all who wander are lost. The quote is from the first Lord of the Rings book, as I said, and it's actually part of a poem that is called The Riddle of Strider. Frodo reads it in a letter from Gandalf, and Gandalf writes this poem to help Frodo know who to trust in his upcoming ring-bearing mission. So the poem is used to help Frodo identify Aragorn, because later on, as Strider, Aragorn recites the last 2 lines of the poem, and so that's how Frodo knows that this is who he's supposed to trust and that this is who Gandalf sent to help him. It's also used later on. Bilbo recites it to, I believe, Elrond's court to prove that Aragorn is the heir of Isildur. So here's the whole poem. All that is gold does not glitter. Not all those who wander are lost. The old that is strong does not wither. Deep roots are not reached by the frost. From the ashes a fire shall be woken, a light from the shadows shall spring. Renewed shall be the blade that was broken, the crownless again shall be king. So obviously it would make sense for Aragorn to repeat those last 2 lines about the blade and the crownless king, because that's like his journey. But this poem is not like a hippie, not all who wander are lost, I'm just wondering kind of thing. It's don't trust people who look like they don't know what they're doing. It's a warning to be wary of strangers and to people whose true interests you don't know. It has nothing to do with like van life. I get like the appeal of the line, like it's a nice line, but it's not like a free spirit hippie line. It's a be wary of strangers line. It's a stranger danger line. I think also kind of like bigger picture, thinking about the span of the story, it's also for Frodo, like it very much foreshadows Frodo's journey and this idea that even when he gets pushed off course, he's not lost. He still makes his way to the end, and he doesn't look assuming, right? Like he doesn't look like somebody who is waging a holy war against the Dark Lord. Like he's just a little hobbit, you know? And that's kind of what the whole book is about heroism and things not looking as they seem, and that the smallest person can make an impact. Next up is a line from Pride and Prejudice. And you already know which one it is. I said Jane Austen, quote out of context. You should know what this is. I declare, after all, there is no enjoyment like reading. I love this one because I think that Jane Austen would think it was very funny that this is the quote that people know the most by her. I think she would think that was very, very funny. So this quote comes from chapter 11 of Pride and Prejudice. The full quote here, I'm going to give you, this is spoken by Caroline Bingley, and that's red flag 1. I'm not, the context is more within the chapter, and so I'm not gonna like read you the whole chapter, but I will read you the rest of the quote, which is, "I declare, after all, there's no enjoyment like reading. How much sooner one tires of anything than of a book. When I have a house of my own, I shall be miserable if I have not an excellent library." And hey, girl, I relate to that. I feel the exact same way. But the thing is about this quote is that Caroline Bingley does not mean it. She is being silly. This comes from chapter 11 of Pride and Prejudice. Elizabeth is staying with the Bingleys because Jane had traveled there to see them and then fell ill. And this takes place in the drawing room after dinner. Mr. Hurst, who is, I believe he's one of the Bingleys. I think he's the Bingleys' brother-in-law. I think Mr. Bingley has an additional sister, and Mr. Hurst is that sister's husband. Anyway, he's really boring. He's really a snooze fest, and he wants to play cards after dinner because in Regency era England, if you were upper class, that's what you did after dinner. But Miss Bingley, like, won't let them. She's like, we're not playing cards because that's boring. And she says that because she knows Mr. Darcy doesn't like to play cards. And if she plays cards like she wants to, Mr. Hurst, Mr. Darcy won't talk to her. And so Caroline's whole thing is like, I have to get Mr. Darcy to love me. And of course, this is all shown through the perspective of Elizabeth, who thinks this is all really hilarious. Mr. Darcy picks up a book, which is so antisocial behavior after dinner to be in a room full of people that are ostensibly kind of like your family. And, you know, you're supposed to perform these very clear social graces. And he's like, I'm going to actually get my book and go sit on the other end of the room. So antisocial. And so Miss Bingley also picks up a book, and then she makes this quote, "I declare there's no enjoyment like reading." And then she sits down, yawns, and throws the book aside. And then she starts talking to Mr. Bingley about throwing a ball. Obviously, Elizabeth finds the whole thing very funny because she sees the performance that Miss Bingley is putting on and how she doesn't mean what she just said. I love the 2005 movie version of this adaptation. I think it's impeccable. But in the movie, the next part of the line is delivered by Mary Bennet, and then the response, who in the book is done by Mr. Bingley, is done by Caroline Bingley. And while I think it very much changes Caroline Bingley's character, I think in the movie she was seen as much more jealous, much more conniving, much more intelligent than she seems in the book. In the book, she's just like her machinations of trying to get Mr. Darcy to propose marriage to her are very obvious, and her desire for attention is very obvious, but it's just as silly almost as the Bennets' behaviors are, but she just has the protection of high society to, you know, absolve her of the embarrassment that Lizzie later gets from her siblings. So the next part of the scene, Miss Bingley is talking to Mr. Bingley, and she's like, "Oh, you can't really mean to throw a ball at Netherfield." And Mr. Bingley's like, "Well, why not?" Because he likes to have fun. He's a guy who likes to have fun. He says a ball would be so much fun. And she's like, "Well, I think that we should instead of dancing, which is so frivolous because Mr. Darcy won't do it, I think we should just all have deep conversation and talk to each other all night." And then Mr. Bingley goes, "Well, that may be very nice, but that would make it rather less like a ball." And like I said in the movie, that line is delivered by Caroline. And I can't be mad because Kelly Riley delivers that line just it's like a vocal tit. It's in my brain all the time, and she's so amazing in that movie. But in the book, it's Caroline who says that they should have a ball where they just talk to each other all night, but deep conversation. Mr. Darcy would also not enjoy. Anyway, it's just really funny to me that this is one of the most famous Jane Austen lines, to the point where it's also on her, I think there's like a 10-pound note or something in England with Jane Austen's face on it, and it has this line on it. And I think that she would think that was really funny because it's so out of context, and that was one of her most witty and satirical lines. But there's another quote of hers that's often taken out of context, and "I would do anything for my friends," and that line is also being delivered facetiously by somebody who does not mean it. So I think that she would think it was funny, but it is completely quoted out of context because that is a character who she literally throws the book away like 2 seconds later. She yawns and throws the books away. I don't even think she opens it. That's really funny to me. The next, often, I won't say misquoted, but I will say misinterpreted. The next misinterpreted quote comes from The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath. As I sat there, unable to decide, the figs began to wrinkle and go black, and one by one they plopped to the ground at my feet. So this is part of a longer metaphor in this book where the main character is talking about indecision and making choices. And I will say, well, let me just read you the whole quote first, and then I'll say what I think about it. I saw my life branching out before me like the green fig tree in the story. From the tip of every branch, like a fat purple fig, a wonderful future beckoned and winked. And beyond and above these figs were many more figs I couldn't quite make out. I saw myself sitting in the crotch of this fig tree, starving to death, just because I couldn't make up my mind which of the figs I would choose. I wanted each and every one of them, but choosing one meant losing all the rest. And as I sat there, unable to decide, the figs began to wrinkle and go black, and one by one, they plopped to the ground at my feet. I have to preface this by telling you my feelings about the bell jar, which are, I'm glad that I read it at 30 because it would have been way too profound to me at 20. It is very much a 20-year-old's book, right? It's very much a 20-year-old's deep bleeding heart of a book. I enjoyed it when I read it recently. I'm older now, and it didn't have the power over me that would have at 20 when I was really depressed and, you know, just feeling the pangs of young adulthood. What I find funny about this quote is immediately after this long paragraph, the narrator says, but maybe I just thought that because I was really hungry. She literally is like, I think I'm just being a little hungry. And so I love that kind of like immediate, she makes this like really profound metaphor and then immediately is like, oh, but I was probably just hungry, so whatever. And she doesn't really come back to it again in the course of the story, which I find kind of funny because even the narrator is kind of denouncing it as melodramatic. And it makes me laugh. And I had heard this quote my whole life, and then I actually read it, and then the hungry thing was right after, and I thought it was really funny. So anyway, I think obviously this is not a good metaphor. As far as I'm aware, you can eat more than one fig in a lifetime, and if you bite out of a fig, you don't have to finish it. And if you have a whole tree blooming with fruit, you could just eat as much as you want. And you could take a bite out of this one and maybe it's too ripe, or maybe you would take a bite of this one and it's not ripe enough, and you could just put those down and have another one. So I think the metaphor itself doesn't work because you can have a lot of choices over a life. You can have as many figs as you want in life. Life is not one fig, as far as I'm aware. It hasn't been in my case. In my case, I've had a lot of figs so far. So it's just like not a very intelligent metaphor, and it doesn't really hold up to scrutiny. I understand the appeal of it, right? Like I understand being 20 and thinking you have to choose your whole life right now, and that anxiety and that stress of feeling like you have to know everything at 20. I get that, right? Like I was there. But now that I'm older, I know that that's not true. And so whenever I see this metaphor going around, I'm like, she's 20. And, you know, and I think also something else is if you read the whole book, you see that this was kind of a warning. Her problem is that she was inactive. She never chose anything. She never took any risk. She never plucked any figs. She completely was at the whims of her own life. She let herself be dragged around by circumstance and never made any choices. She didn't spend her whole life sitting in the tree watching the figs die. She went to a mental institution. Okay, so maybe just make a choice. It doesn't matter. It's not that serious. Pick one. If you don't like it, you can have another one. If you do like it, you can have another one. If you want the same fig forever, you can have the same fig forever. If you want 27 figs, you can have 27 figs. Hey, there are no rules, right? So like the metaphor is not a great metaphor, but also taken out of the context of the story where her indecision ruins her life. Pick a fig. Next up. Last one, and this one is my favorite because I have a lot of feelings about Wuthering Heights, and I think this quote kind of sums up my entire feeling about Wuthering Heights. Quote is, "Whatever our souls are made of, his and mine are the same." And I always put an asterisk behind that derogatory. Because if you've read Wuthering Heights and you understood Wuthering Heights, this is not a romantic declaration. This is not something to aspire towards. This is a crazy thing to say. It was a self-read levels we've never seen before. This was part of a conversation, and so there's kind of a lot of back and forth going on, and so I've clipped the parts of it that Kathy's talking about the specific thing. Here's the whole quote. "It would degrade me to marry Heathcliff now, so he shall never know how I love him. And that not because he's handsome, Nelly, but because he is more myself than I am. Whatever our souls are made of, his and mine are the same. If all else perished and he remained, I should still continue to be. And if all else remained and he were annihilated, the universe would turn to a mighty stranger. My love for Heathcliff resembles the eternal rocks beneath, a source of little visible delight, but necessary. He's always, always in my mind, not as a pleasure to myself, but as my own being." So if someone said some of these sentences to me, my feelings would be hurt. It's really funny to me that this whole conversation starts off with, "It would degrade me to marry." That is so funny. Okay, so the whole kind of context of this conversation is this conversation takes place between Kathy and her servant Nelly, when Kathy's probably about 16, maybe 15 or 16. At this point, Kathy's a teenager. She has grown up without discipline. Her mother died when she was quite young. Her father also died when she was quite young. Her older brother, who despises her, took control of the estate and kind of like let her do what she wanted. So she grows up really outside of society, but she is a society woman. So that's kind of where this degrade thing comes from, because she does have some social standing. However, she's grown up completely without rules. She's been running wild as a dog with Heathcliff for the past couple of years, and that sort of commiseration, that both of them feeling isolated and lonely, has formed this trauma bond between them. Again, not romantic to me, but y'all do you, okay? So Kathy has grown up to be selfish, ignorant, and mean. She is a liar. She's a manipulator. She's a horrible fucking person. So this conversation is taking place in the kitchen between Nelly and Catherine. At this point, Kathy has been courting a wealthy young man who lives across the moors named Linton. She is talking about marrying Linton and what her future will be. This conversation has started. Nelly secretly invites Heathcliff to come in while Kathy's not paying attention, because again, she's a selfish narcissist and she's not paying attention to other people. And Heathcliff kind of stands inside the door. He hears most of this conversation where she's talking about marrying Linton. "It would degrade me to marry Heathcliff." Heathcliff gets mad, storms out. Kathy still does not know that he was in the room, okay? She still does not know he was there. It's amazing. It's amazing to me. It's really amazing to me. Kathy goes on to talk about if she was in control, this is the situation she would have. And she's not only saying this of like, if I could have my way, but I expect to have my way, and I expect people to do this, which is that she will marry Linton and get rich from marrying him. And then she will keep her relationship to Heathcliff exactly the same as it is. She's a married woman now in Victorian England, a rich married woman, a society woman, titled, but she's going to keep her little boyfriend, her little servant boyfriend on the side in her husband's house, and her husband's just going to deal with it because they're just in love and he has to deal with it. Then Heathcliff will be raised up in society because of his association to Linton and Kathy, and all will be well. And you don't have to really know much about Victorian society to know that that's not going to fucking happen. It's such an insane and childish and selfish wish, completely devoid of reality, completely devoid of other people's feelings on the matter. It's a crazy thing to say. Heathcliff doesn't hear that part. He just hears the it would degrade me, because Kathy, whatever she says about how much she loves him, she doesn't love him enough to have the kind of life that she would have if she married him. And I think that's like the most important part of this, is that Kathy is just talking out of her ass. She's just saying the romantic stuff that she's read in books. She's just saying the romantic things that she feels as a teenager. She's not actually willing to talk the talk, right? I mean, to walk the walk. She's not willing to walk the walk. I think that's the part of this romance that people skip on. Kathy could have at any time run off with Heathcliff and they could have been in love together, but she doesn't want to do that. She refuses every chance she has to do that. Even when later on, when Heathcliff comes back, she still is unwilling to make any sacrifices for their love. She's still unwilling to make any hard choices about it. She's unwilling to be a grown up about it. That ultimately causes her demise. And what is really amazing to me about this quote being like the romantic quote is she doesn't even say it to him, first of all. She doesn't say where he's hearing. She actually says in the quote, he will never know. Oh my God, Hallie. Hallie, get down. Hallie, get down. You're stealing the limelight. So Kathy never tells Heathcliff how she feels. She continues to string him along, and she says all of these really hurtful things about him to him and never apologizes for them. And this scene sets off the real plot of the story, which is Heathcliff hears this. He's horribly hurt by it and offended, and his last ally has kind of cut ties with him and expressed what he feels is maybe her true thoughts about him this whole time. He runs off, spends the next couple of years forging his own path through whatever nefarious means, gets himself a lot of money. Kathy ends up marrying Linton, and they start relatively peaceful life together. She's happy, I would say, for all intents and purposes. And then Heathcliff comes back, and because of what she says, he starts off on this whole revenge arc that ruins not only his life, not only her life, but the lives of every single person in this book. Every single person is hurt by Heathcliff's reaction to hearing Kathy say this. To some extent, right? Like, you have to kind of, she's right? Like being married to somebody without land would degrade her. She would have a very hard life because she would not be allowed to stay at Wuthering Heights. She would not be invited back into society. She would not have the money she's used to having. She would become a peasant essentially and live with Heathcliff, and they would have to find their own way, and that would be very hard. It would very likely degrade their relationship. Whatever feelings they had for each other would probably be washed away in the hardship of surviving poor in Victorian England. And so it's not really a choice, right? Like logically, you're like, yeah, Kathy should marry Linton and kind of cut Heathcliff in the clear. The problem is that she does not cut him in the clear. She still wants to have it both ways, even when he comes back. Her ignorance ruins the lives of everyone around her. And so that's why it's really funny to me that this is like supposed to be this big romantic quote when it's out of context. Whatever our souls are made of, his and mine are the same. I think that's the meanest thing she could have said about herself. Context matters. I'm just pointing out the humor of some of these quotes being taken out of context and how drastically their meanings change when they're put back into their literary context. And if you have not read any of these books, highly recommend. They're all great. They're all classics for a reason. Like and subscribe if you are interested in this kind of material, and I will see you next time.